Thank you. Well, if you are new or visiting, my name is Matt, and I get the joy of being the priest in this beautiful community. And today I want to talk about Mark chapter 2. If you've got one of these Mark books, we are looking at page 10, and we're going to dive into it just a sec. But what I want to say today is that we see this reoccurring pattern that happens in these stories. There's 3 stories today. There's a reoccurring pattern that happens, and I want you to pick up on them early doors. The first thing is that Jesus acts. Jesus does something. He says something. He empowers somebody. He then gets opposed. Like the religious elite oppose him, and then he reveals something beautiful about who he is and what the kingdom of God is really like. And so, please pick up on these key themes as we head into the story. Mia. Where's Mia? Mia. Can we welcome Mia, everybody? Mia is going to read to us today. We are diving into page number 10, and we're going to dive in together. Mia, come on in.
Okay. Follow me, Jesus told him. Once again, Jesus went out beside the Sea of Galilee. A large crowd came to him. He began to teach them. As he walked along, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus. Levi was sitting at the tax collector's booth. Follow me, Jesus told him. Levi got up and followed him. Later, Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house. Many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples. They were part of a large crowd following Jesus. Some teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, were there. They saw Jesus eating with sinners and tax collectors. So they asked his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" Jesus heard that. So he said to them, "Those who are healthy do not need a doctor. Ill people do. I have not come to get those who think they are right with God to follow me. I have come to get sinners to follow me." John's disciples and the Pharisees were going without eating. Some people came to Jesus. They said to him, "John's disciples are fasting. The disciples of the Pharisees are fasting, but your disciples are not. Why aren't they?" Jesus answered, "How can the guests of the groom go without eating while he is with them? They will not fast as long as he is with them, but the time will come when the groom will be taken away from them. On that day they will go without eating. No one sews a patch of new cloth on old clothes, otherwise the new piece will pull away from the old. That will make the tear worse. No one pours new wine into old wineskins, otherwise the wine will burst the skins. Then the wine and the wineskins will both be destroyed. No, people pour new wine into new wineskins." One Sabbath day, Jesus was walking with his disciples through the cornfields. The disciples began to break off some ears of corn. The Pharisees said to Jesus, "Look, it is against the law to do this on the Sabbath day. Why are your disciples doing it?" He answered, "Haven't you ever read about what David did? He and his men were hungry. They needed food. It was when Abiathar was high priest. David entered the house of God and ate the holy bread. Only priests were allowed to eat it. David also gave it to some of them." Then Jesus said to them, "The Sabbath day was made for man. Man was not made for the Sabbath day. So the Son of Man is Lord, even on the Sabbath day."
Mia, thank you, you're awesome. Beautifully read, thank you so much, Mia. Okay, we're not going to have a breakout today, but we're running out of time, but I want just to take 1 minute now, which you know is a Matt Clayton 1 minute, which may not be any amount of time. Which, can you just ask the people next to you, like, what was one thing that stood out? Ask people next to you, what's one thing that stood out to you? Is that okay? 3, 2, 1, let's go. Anyone want to shout any key moments they found interesting? New patch on an old garment. Yeah, we're going to come to that. Anything else that people find interesting? Tax collectors. Yeah, we're going to come to that. Anything else people want to find interesting?
Because I won't. It's a long one.
Those who are healthy don't need a doctor. Yeah, those who are sick do. We're going to come to that. Oliver, what was your one? Okay. Okay, right. So, did you see the pattern? Jesus acts, he says something, he does something, he empowers somebody. He gets like a fairly brutal rebuttal from the religious elite. And then he reveals something beautiful about who he is and what the kingdom of God is really like. Key moments. Levi, little Levi, not this one in the passage. Levi is told, "Hey, come follow me. Come follow me." What happens? He then has this feast with some friends, and the religious elite are like, why is he eating with sinners? Like, Jesus, what's going on there? Like, what are you doing? And he says, those who are healthy don't need a doctor. Those who are sick do. Interesting. First moment. Second moment, the disciples are there, and they're like, they're not fasting. They're not giving up food. What fasting means is that you give up food for a period of time so that you can pray and lean into the Lord. They're not fasting, and the religious elite are like, Jesus, like your disciples aren't doing religious life properly. Like, what's going on here? And he throws back at them again. A time is coming when they will fast. They will fast, but I'm here at the moment, and they don't need it. Thirdly, they're hungry. They're hungry, and they eat like grains of corn. And then the religious elite are like, Jesus, it's the Sabbath. You know this is not allowed. And then Jesus turns up with this line, like, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, don't be lazy. You need to rest because you work hard, right? And so this is where he heads into. Let's dive into this first a little bit. This second paragraph down, which starts with later. Later, Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house. Many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples. They were part of a large crowd. Let's talk about this in a moment. You know, most other translations use the word reclining. Reclining was a word that they would put at like a banquet. Jesus is not at a meal which is like a drive-through. He is at a banquet. It's interesting because he is spending both quality time and quality resource. Like, it would cost him something to be at this banquet. It's expensive, and he is eating with the wrong kind of people. It's interesting, like Jesus is in the wrong place, spending the wrong amount of money with the wrong kind of people, spending an overly long period of time. See, what the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were worried about is cross-contamination. Cross-contamination. What if Jesus' food hadn't been cooked properly? What if it wasn't kosher? What if it had been mixed with meat that had been sacrificed to another faith? What if it hadn't been tithed in the right kind of way? What if the dishes were washed in a way that was unacceptable to Jews and Jewish law? The tax collectors here were people collecting taxes on behalf of a Roman oppressor, a Roman empire, and they would extort and inflate rates. Imagine the VAT in Roman world was 12.5%, they would charge 25%. Imagine the Inland Revenue came and they said, you owe us £10,000 this year. Be a good year, wouldn't it? Like, they would say, you owe us £30,000. They would be inflating the rates and skimming the rest off the top. Imagine if we had an opposing empire that came into Britain and started charging us taxes, and one of us was collecting taxes on their behalf. This is who Levi is. There's a beautiful Catholic priest called Joel Marcus, and he says this: they were at liberty to charge as much as they wanted, these tax collectors. The system bred abuse. Dishonesty and general unsavouriness of tax collectors became a proverbial. It's interesting. One commentator describes them as an agent of hate. In other words, the word tax collector was used for an insult. Just in your mind, I know that you guys are holy and you guys are right, but just imagine the worst insult you can think in your brain. Don't say it out loud, that'd be mean. But just think about, like, if I say the word you and you finish the sentence in your brain, like, what word comes to mind? In this context, tax collector would be one of the first things. You know, you steal from a friend, they're like, you tax collector. You know, like, if you did something dishonest, they'd be like, you tax, like, this is what it would be used as. So that you, end phrase, word that we're not going to shout aloud because that would be unkind, that is what is happening in this context here. Jesus is on spiritual thin ice. He's in the wrong place, spending the wrong amount of money, spending the wrong amount of time, eating in a place that could be cross-contaminated and make him spiritually sick. The religious elite are worried that he is breaking the law of Moses, the Old Testament law, and he's worried. They're worried about who he's hanging out with. You know, and to put it politely, these are not the kind of people you'd want to bring home to your mum after a second date. Like, these are not the kind of people you'd want to introduce to your family. They are interesting, thieving people. And so there are two points I want to make from this. And they're all about the heart Jesus has for humanity. Firstly, I need you to hear this. Jesus is unafraid to get caught up in the lives of other people whose lives are scandalous. The lives that other people look down upon, the other lives that people sneer at, the lives that people kind of like use as a cuss word, Jesus is unafraid to get entangled with them. He's unafraid to get involved in their life. He would intertwine himself into the lives of the most broken in their community time and time again. He would go to the most spiritually distant people to show love. You know, I cannot count the amount of times that we've had people come to faith in our communities over the last 15 years. And one of their friends come for something like a baptism or because they've been invited. And they say to me, they're the last person that I thought would come to faith. Have you experienced this before? Like, of all of our friends, they were the last person I thought would become religious or find faith. You know, Jesus, who becomes Matthew, is one of those people. He is one of the most unlikely characters to have been called by Jesus, to be charged as a disciple. Just imagine for a moment you were Jesus and your life's mission was to create a community that would change the world, would change people's perspective on faith, that would lead people to understanding of what spiritual health was really like, that would change the world. Would this man be your first choice? Absolutely not. But again, what does Jesus do? Jesus acts. They oppose him and he reveals something. What is Jesus doing? What is he revealing in this moment? I think part of the reason they're opposing Jesus is because he's doing something that they are afraid to do. It's not like the religious elite didn't want to do this. It's not like they didn't want to do what was right, but they were afraid to go near people who were sick and ill, particularly with skin conditions like leprosy, because they were worried that if they caught leprosy, that they would then become spiritually sick. What Jesus is doing, what's he revealing? He is revealing that he is unafraid of the baggage that you bring. He is unafraid of the life that you have lived. He is unafraid to enter your life, regardless if you've lived a beautiful life without anything going wrong, or like most of us, you've lived a life where there's some stuff that you wish you could redo. Jesus is intentionally showing us something beautiful. No matter who you are, no matter what your past, there is a future for every person who encounters Jesus. St. Augustine of Hippo, one of the great bishops in the early church, said this: there is no saint without a past, and there's no sinner without a future. This is the reality upon which we stand. You know, this baptism this morning, they testified to that, didn't they? They said, I was once this way. I found Jesus, and my life is different. As they went under the waters, and they were raised up into new life. They showed us what the Christian life is really about. A dying to our prior life, leaving it in the ground and being risen out of the waters to show resurrection life that only Jesus can bring. You know, we are not the sum of our feelings, our mistakes, our desires, or our past. In and through Jesus and him alone are we made new. Jesus is showing us something here. He is unafraid of the baggage we bring. Secondly, Jesus is so desperate to bring spiritual health and well-being to these people that he'll go down the spiritually dangerous routes. My question is this. If we had a breakout question today, it would be this. What areas of your life have you blocked off to Jesus because you're afraid of what he will say? It's interesting. One of the commentators said, it seems that this meal was in nature a reception by Levi to his old business acquaintances to show them that he had found a new master and enable them to meet him. Just ponder that for a moment. This whole meal that Levi's put on, expensive as it is for one purpose. It's to show Jesus off to the people who he used to do business with. To say, I used to live this way. I found Jesus and my life is different. He's showing Jesus, he's saying, look, guys, I used to do this, but now I've got a new way of doing this. This meal was a normal meal for Jesus. I think many commentators say that Mark wants to highlight it as a typical example of Jesus' ministry. Something that would regularly be in his diary, regularly on the schedule. It says this, doesn't it, in verse 16. Just jump down into the last little bit of the paragraph. It says this: they saw Jesus eating with sinners and tax collectors. So they asked his disciples, why did he eat with sinners and tax collectors? Jesus heard that, so he said to them, those who are healthy don't need a doctor, ill people do. I've come to get those who think that I've come not to get those who think that they are right with God to follow me. I've come to get sinners to follow me. It is an important point to note that Jesus doesn't call Levi Levi from this point onwards. This is the last moment that you hear Levi being referred to as Levi. From this point onwards, he is called Matthew. Jesus acts. He's opposed, and he reveals something more beautiful. You have to see what Jesus is doing. He is acting, he is loving, he is showing his character, his heart for humanity. He gets opposed by the religious leaders again and again and again, but there is something spiritual that is revealed. Levi is changed. This dinner is him saying to his new friends, I am not who I used to be because I've encountered Christ. And therefore, it's important to note that those who spent time with Jesus are not the same. Same is true today. The guys that we read about in the scriptures, they don't go back to their old way of doing life before they met Jesus. However messy, however tempting, however strange, however frustrating their life was. And that's what we see in these baptisms, this dying to self and being raised out of the waters into a new life through Christ. It's not that we have it all sorted. It's not that temptations don't come. It's not that fears of old don't arise. It's not that we are tempted by a friendship group to take us back on a journey before we knew Jesus. It's a process of saying, Christ is my King. Christ is my Lord. And doing what Levi does, come and see this man who changes my life. And he hammers this point home with this illustration that is utterly lost on us. If we jump to this second paragraph on the second half. No one sews a patch of new cloth onto old clothes. Otherwise, the new piece will pull away from the old. That will make the tear worse. No one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the new wine will burst from the old wineskins. Then the wine and the wineskins both be destroyed. No people pour new wine into new wineskins. New wine to new wineskins. Now, this perhaps is the ultimate burn of the Pharisees that Jesus has to offer. This is the ultimate kind of insult he offers to the religious elite. This new way, he is saying, this new way of life, this new way of following me doesn't fit with your old religious orders. Jesus is not doing away with the Old Testament laws. I need you to hear that. He is comparing wine with wine. He hasn't changed the substance. But wine, while it was fermenting, would expand, would bubble. Sometimes if you put new wine in old wineskins, it would explode. And it's a beautiful parable of what's happening to Levi. He cannot contain his faith any longer. He invites his friends to see a new way of life, a new understanding, a new perspective, a new teaching, a new ethical way of being. His life is new wine poured into a new wineskin that can stretch to his newfound faith. This new way of life for Levi cannot be contained. And what Jesus is saying is that when you find faith in me, we can no longer be contained to the old structures of Judaism. Remember the structure. Jesus acts, they oppose, and he reveals. And he reveals something really beautiful here. This new covenant. Remember we do communion. We say this is the blood of the new covenant. This new relationship that we have with God through Christ. is this new wine, is this thing that will bring us spiritual health, spiritual life, peace in abundance. Now, I need to make a side point here, that this text has sometimes been used to do away with some of the bits of the Old Testament that we don't really like. The historic teaching around some of the contentious ethical issues in the Old Testament and in the New. But Jesus didn't come to abolish the old laws of purity. He came to fulfill them. He came to advance them. And he equips us to advance towards people without fear, without having to walk away, without the risk of being caught up in their sin, and therefore offering a vital lifeline to us, ordinary sinners, in the beautifulness of the Father's presence. See, where we get life in this new set of freedoms that Christ offers is that he removes the old pre-Christless living from our hearts, from our life. And we inherit wonder and beauty, life and love, where we get to see the fullness of what God is like, where we get to walk in the freedom that he offers, where we get to turn and say, Jesus, I wish I had it sorted, but I don't. And therefore forgive me, love me, heal me, restore me. And only through Jesus can that happen. Only through Jesus do we get new life, new wine in a beautiful new wineskin. Remember what he said? It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. So here's where I conclude. Jesus has gone from healing the sick rapidly in the previous chapter, proving that he can forgive sins, and has moved into a new way of demonstrating his authority by calling a man whose lifestyle and job puts him automatically in the category of a sinner. And what's more, he doesn't just enable life-changing moments and events, but for him, he sits and eats with his community. He gets personal, he gets real, he gets intimate with the person whom the religious elite write off. And therefore, the call of the one trying to follow Jesus is to go out of our way, not to avoid those who might be spiritually contagious in an old wineskin kind of way, but advance towards them with the life of Christ, bringing hope, joy to every person that we come into contact with, not in our strength, but in his. Jesus acts. He's opposed, and he reveals. This is our model. We're called to be like Christ, to act, to do something beautiful where we proclaim something of Jesus. We'll probably get opposed by it. And as we do, to reveal something beautiful of who Jesus is to the world around us. He acts, he's opposed, and then he reveals something beautiful. Do you want to stand? We are going to pray together.